Mouths explored mouths. Bodies met in new combinations, fluid, trusting, intimate. By the time they collapsed again, sweaty and breathless, none of them had questions anymore. Just one truth. They weren't broken. They were different. They were whole, in a way none of them could have ever imagined. And as they drifted to sleep in each other's arms, the silence was not just peaceful. It was sacred. Julian stood at the window, shirtless, the glow of the city lights casting sharp edges across his skin. His thoughts were a whirlpool, but the noise was strangely calming now. Behind him, he heard soft footsteps approach, bare feet on hardwood. Elena wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his spine. "You always go quiet after," she whispered. "I think too much," he murmured. Sebastian leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the two of them. He didn't interrupt. He just watched, like he was memorizing the moment. Julian turned around slowly in Elena's embrace. "It still feels unreal." "What part?" she asked. "That you didn't walk away. That he didn't. That I didn't lose everything." Sebastian stepped forward, now close enough to place a hand on Julian's shoulder, the other gently reaching for Elena's. "You didn't lose anything," Sebastian said. "You found something most people never do." There were no more questions. No need to justify the shape of their love. They were past shame. Past guilt. Past fear. Later that evening, the three of them were tangled on the couch, watching old films, laughing at things that weren't even funny. Elena's head rested on Sebastian's lap while Julian's legs were wrapped around them both like vines. There was no hierarchy. No front. No center. Only shared space. Shared breath. When Sebastian leaned down to kiss Elena, she reached up and pulled Julian into it too, lips tasting lips, then trailing down necks, shoulders, and skin flushed with warmth. Clothes were pulled off slowly, like silk unraveling. They made their way to the bedroom, not in haste, but in rhythm, Sebastian carrying Elena, Julian trailing behind, leaving a trail of kisses down her back. The bed greeted them like a soft ocean, and they sank into it, their bodies speaking languages that words never could. Elena kissed Julian's chest, trailing lower, as Sebastian kissed the back of Julian's neck, hands exploring him with a familiarity that had grown bold. Julian groaned softly, fingers tightening in the sheets. Then it was Elena and Sebastian, her hands pulling him close, his mouth tracing fire along her inner thigh, while Julian watched with reverent hunger before joining them again. It wasn't about who touched who first. It was about never feeling alone in that moment. 3 hearts, 3 bodies, 1 rhythm. When it was over, they lay together in a breathless heap, laughing, smiling, messy and satisfied. No regrets. No apologies. Just peace. The next morning, Elena woke between them, her head resting on Julian's chest, Sebastian's hand on her waist. The sun spilled across their bodies like gold. She thought about all the rules the world had taught her, what love was supposed to look like, what relationships were supposed to be. And then she looked at them. Her boys. And thought, let them keep their rules. We made something better. She didn't say it out loud. But when Sebastian kissed her shoulder and Julian pressed a sleepy kiss to her temple, she knew they felt it too. Something real. Something sacred. And beautifully, irrevocably theirs. The first morning all 3 of them woke up together felt different. Not because it was unfamiliar, but because it felt right. Sunlight poured in through the half-open blinds, casting soft shadows over the tangled sheets. Julian was on his back, one arm tucked behind his head, the other lazily draped over Sebastian's bare waist. Elena lay between them, curled into Julian's side, her fingers loosely resting on Sebastian's chest. There was a quiet peace in the room. No alarms. No words. Just breathing. Eventually, Elena stirred first. She looked at both of them, her eyes still heavy with sleep, but glowing. She smiled. "I could stay like this forever." Julian ran his fingers through her hair. Who says we can't? Sebastian chuckled, his voice rough and low. We'd need a lot of coffee for forever. She leaned over and kissed him, not rushed, not deep, just soft. A reminder. Then turned to Julian and kissed him too. He pulled her closer, deepening the kiss this time, his hand gently sliding up her back. There was no rush. Everything moved slow, like they finally had permission to savor one another. They got out of bed only because hunger called louder than desire. But even in the kitchen, it was still them. Bumping into each other, stealing kisses, Julian teasing Elena with a spoonful of peanut butter until she playfully threatened him with a knife. Later that day, Sebastian pulled Julian aside while Elena was on a call. They stood near the balcony, breeze brushing against their bare arms. You ever think we're moving too fast? Sebastian asked. Julian tilted his head. Maybe. But when something feels this good, do you really want to slow it down? Sebastian looked at him, his calm confidence, the way his lips curled at the corners. He sighed. I just don't want any of us to get hurt. Julian nodded. Neither do I. That's why we have to be honest. With ourselves. With her. With each other. Sebastian gave a small nod, then leaned in and kissed him, slow, meaningful. There was no urgency, only presence. That night, they didn't plan anything special. But as the lights dimmed and the city hummed outside their windows, the mood turned. Elena came out of the shower wearing only a towel, water still dripping from her hair. Julian, shirtless, sat on the couch, and Sebastian was already curled up with a glass of wine in hand. She walked over, towel slipping slightly, revealing more skin than she probably meant to, or maybe she did. Julian's eyes darkened. Sebastian smirked. Join us? He asked. She dropped the towel. There was no hesitation this time. No questions. They met her like gravity, pulling her into their space, into their arms, into their warmth. Clothes slipped away. Skin met skin. It was all soft hands, hungry mouths, and whispered names in the dark. They moved together like waves, each one responding, giving, receiving. Elena kissed Sebastian while Julian kissed her neck. Julian held Sebastian's hand while Elena traced patterns on both their chests. It didn't matter who touched whom, it was all one rhythm. They were three hearts, beating in harmony. And when it was over, when sweat cooled on skin and hearts slowed their pounding, Elena whispered, We're not broken, are we? Julian pulled her close. No, love. We're just different. Sebastian wrapped an arm around both of them. Different never felt this perfect. And as sleep pulled them under again, there were no doubts. Only love. Growing. Becoming something new. Something theirs. Rain tapped gently against the window panes, filling the apartment with a soft rhythm as the sky turned gray above the city. Inside, everything was warm, the scent of coffee lingering in the air, the quiet hum of music playing from Julian's speaker, and the stillness that only comes from comfort. Elena sat cross-legged on the couch, wearing one of Julian's oversized sweaters, sleeves too long for her hands. She was flipping through a photography book, but her eyes weren't really reading, they were drifting, thoughtful. Sebastian sat on the floor, his back leaning against the couch, his head resting against her knee. Julian was in the kitchen, humming softly while stirring something on the stove. It felt like a quiet Sunday, ordinary, but extraordinary because of who they were now. Elena's fingers moved into Sebastian's hair gently, threading through it. He sighed, content. We should go away sometime, she said quietly. Sebastian turned his head to look up at her. Just the three of us? She nodded. No distractions. No hiding. Somewhere where we can be us. Julian called from the kitchen, I vote for Greece. Or Iceland. Either extreme. Elena laughed. You just want an excuse to see Sebastian shirtless on a beach. Sebastian grinned. He doesn't need a beach for that. Julian walked over, dish towel thrown over his shoulder, and leaned down to kiss Elena's forehead. "You're not wrong. But also, I just want to wake up next to both of you with nowhere else to be." Elena's heart fluttered, but she tried to hide it behind a playful smile. "You're becoming such a sap." Julian bent lower and kissed her on the lips this time, a slow, unhurried kiss that tasted like warmth and something sweeter. When he pulled away, Sebastian stood, walked around the couch, and gently cupped Julian's face, pulling him into a kiss too. There was a rhythm now, a language they were learning, when to touch, when to pause, when to give and when to ask. Later that evening, when the rain had stopped and the city lights blinked to life, the three of them lay on the rug in the living room, wrapped in a large blanket. A single candle flickered beside them, casting long shadows on the walls. Elena lay between them again. Julian spooned her from behind, his hand resting on her stomach, while Sebastian lay facing her, brushing soft kisses across her collarbone. She tilted her head and met his lips halfway. The kiss deepened slowly, breath hitching as hands roamed under the blanket. Julian's lips found the back of her neck, kissing her softly while his fingers explored gently, drawing quiet gasps from her. Sebastian moved lower, kissing a trail down her chest, while Julian whispered her name like a prayer. There was no jealousy. No confusion. Just waves of desire and tenderness, each of them wrapped in the other, connected by something more than just passion. They took their time. Every touch mattered. Every sigh, every gasp, every whispered word, it all blended together into something more than intimacy. It was trust. Vulnerability. Love in its rawest, most accepting form. When it was over, they stayed close, tangled up in each other, silent but full. Elena pressed a kiss to Julian's chest. "Is this love?" she asked softly, almost afraid to break the spell. Julian looked at Sebastian, then at her. "I think it's whatever we want it to be." Sebastian nodded. "And whatever it becomes next, we face it together." She smiled, blinking back sudden tears. "Then let's keep choosing this. Every day." And in that quiet moment, with the world outside still and the candle flickering beside them, they all knew. They already were. The morning light seeped through the curtains in golden streaks, casting a soft glow across tangled sheets and warm skin. Elena stirred first, her eyes blinking open slowly as she adjusted to the calmness that surrounded her. Julian's arm was draped protectively over her waist, while Sebastian's hand still rested on her thigh, his breath gentle against her shoulder. It wasn't chaos anymore. It wasn't confusion. It was comfort, an unspoken agreement that this, whatever this was theirs. She turned slowly in Julian's arms, brushing her nose softly against his. His eyes fluttered open, sleep-heavy but already smiling. "Morning, beautiful." She murmured. "You always wake up this soft." He kissed her, lazy and warm, before Sebastian's voice cut in, playful. "You two always forget I'm awake too." Elena turned her head just in time to see him grin, then lean forward and kiss her good morning too, slow, deep, unhurried. The kiss lingered, Julian watching with amusement as Elena's fingers curled into Sebastian's hair. He leaned in, and soon they were all kissing, touching, wrapped around each other like the night hadn't ended. It was slow again. Tender. Like they wanted to memorize each other in this morning light. Julian's hands traveled down her back, sliding under the oversized shirt she'd thrown on sometime during the night. Sebastian kissed down her shoulder, teeth grazing her skin, drawing a breathy sigh from her lips. Her hands moved, fingertips finding their way under Julian's shirt, pressing into his chest, feeling the rhythm of his heart beneath her palm. She turned to face him fully, lips finding his neck, while Sebastian kissed along her spine, unbuttoning the last fabric that separated them. Clothes were shed without urgency. Just skin on skin. Breath on breath. They made love slowly, not out of lust, but out of a hunger for closeness. Every sigh was echoed. Every moan, answered. It wasn't hurried or wild. It was exploration. Worship. Elena straddled Julian, her hands resting on his chest, his gaze full of quiet admiration. Sebastian kissed her from behind, his lips trailing down her back, while his hands found Julian's, gripping them softly. It was messy in the most beautiful way. Time blurred. When it was over, Elena lay between them again, her body covered in a thin sheen of sweat, her heart beating in rhythm with theirs. Julian pressed a kiss to her temple. Sebastian's fingers traced circles across her hip. No one spoke for a while. Until Elena said softly, "What happens when the world finds out?" Julian exhaled. "Let it." Sebastian looked at both of them. "We're not a secret. Not anymore. We've already chosen each other." Elena nodded, her eyes glistening. "Then I'll stop hiding." She reached out, took Julian's hand in one, and Sebastian's in the other, pulling them toward her heart. "This is mine. You're both mine." And both men, eyes filled with something deep and true, whispered in unison, "Always." The day began, but the world outside no longer held the power it once did. Because in here, in this space, love had broken all rules, crossed every line, and built something new. Rain tapped gently on the windows, a rhythmic hush that filled the apartment with softness. Elena stood by the glass, wrapped in Julian's long coat, watching the city blur beneath the storm. Her breath fogged the window slightly as she pressed her forehead to the cool pane. Behind her, the smell of fresh coffee mingled with the comforting scent of skin and sleep. Footsteps padded quietly, and arms wrapped around her waist from behind. Julian's lips brushed her neck. "You've been quiet," he whispered. Elena leaned back into him. "Just thinking." "About what?" She hesitated. "About how something so right can start so wrong." Julian's arms tightened. "What we did wasn't perfect. But what we have now is real." A few heartbeats passed. Then another voice broke the silence, low, steady, grounding. "She's afraid," Sebastian said from the doorway, shirtless and tousled, his voice gentle. "Not because of us. But because the world has no idea how to love the way we do." Elena turned toward him. "What if people don't accept it?" Sebastian stepped closer, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "Then we teach them." Julian looked between them, then smiled. "We've fought enough. We don't owe anyone an explanation." Elena reached out and took Sebastian's hand, then Julian's. "You two broke my heart once. But now, it feels like it was only broken so we could rebuild it together." They didn't speak for a moment, the three of them locked in silent understanding. Then Sebastian pulled them both toward the couch. They sat tangled, the rain outside growing heavier. The quiet turned intimate again, a need to reaffirm what words couldn't say. Julian leaned over first, kissing Sebastian. Slow, sensual, with an ease that spoke of trust rebuilt. Elena watched, cheeks flushed, before she moved in between them, kissing them both. Her lips brushed Julian's first, then Sebastian's. The air thickened with desire. Shirts were pulled off gently, slowly. Skin met skin. Julian kissed her neck as Sebastian kissed her thigh, their hands working in perfect rhythm. She gasped, her body arching, her fingers clinging to them. Their mouths followed her breath, her moans. Everything was unhurried, careful, deeply connected. They undressed each other as if memorizing a ritual. Sebastian moved behind Elena, kissing the back of her shoulder while Julian kissed her chest, murmuring words she couldn't even make out, only feel. Her body trembled between them, their touches igniting her, grounding her, breaking her open and putting her back together again. They made love in silence, no loud sounds, just breath, soft words, lips parting, skin pressing against skin, love drawn in every motion. After, they lay together on the couch, still bare, bodies tangled beneath a thick blanket. The storm had softened. The city lights flickered in the puddles below. Elena spoke quietly. "You know what I want?" Julian turned his head toward her. "What?" "I want to stop pretending we're something we're not. I want to walk down the street holding both your hands." Sebastian smiled. "Then let's do it." Julian's eyes sparkled. Tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow. No, Elena whispered, resting her head on both of their chests. Let's start right now. The morning light filtered in through the thin curtains, painting golden streaks across their bare skin. Elena stirred first, her eyes fluttering open to the warmth of bodies on either side of her. One arm lay over Julian's chest, her legs tangled with Sebastian's beneath the shared blanket. She didn't move right away. There was something sacred about this silence, a rare kind of peace. No guilt. No lies. Just breath, warmth, and the subtle hum of three hearts beating in sync. Julian's eyes opened a moment later. His hand instinctively found Elena's waist, drawing gentle circles over her skin. Morning, he murmured. Sebastian shifted behind her, his lips brushing the nape of her neck. You feel like summer. Elena smiled sleepily. You two really know how to ruin a girl's ability to be mad at anything. Julian leaned up on one elbow, his hair a mess, his jaw covered in stubble. Then let us ruin your whole morning. She giggled, but it turned into a gasp as Sebastian's hand trailed slowly down her thigh. Elena, Sebastian whispered, look at us. No hiding. No pretending. Just desire. Her eyes met Julian's first, full of fire and reverence, then turned to Sebastian's, darker, hungrier. She reached for both of them at once, her fingers threading into their hair as they leaned in. Their mouths met in the space between them, first her and Julian, then her and Sebastian, then Julian and Sebastian again. Each kiss held something unique. Julian's was tender and loving, Sebastian's full of hunger and mischief, and Elena's was the balance that made it all whole. The blanket slid off as they moved together. Julian lifted Elena gently, guiding her into his lap, their bodies connecting slowly. She gasped as he entered her, clutching his shoulders. Sebastian moved behind her, kissing her spine, her shoulders, her neck, before slowly letting his hands explore. Careful, watching her breathe, whispering into her skin. She moaned softly, one hand behind her reaching for Sebastian, the other gripping Julian. Every motion was slow, deep, intimate. There was no rush, only rhythm and reverence. Julian kissed her lips, Sebastian kissed her throat. Their touches made her melt, surrendering to the trust they built together. When it was over, they lay there, tangled again, skin against skin, heartbeats slow. None of them wanted to move. None of them wanted the morning to end. But eventually, Elena sat up, pulling one of Julian's shirts over her head. I want breakfast, she said with a soft smile. I'll cook, Sebastian offered, already standing, completely unashamed in his bare skin before tossing on a pair of boxers. Julian stretched, watching them both. I'll make coffee. As the kitchen filled with the sounds of pans and boiling water, Elena leaned on the counter, watching her lovers, no longer secrets, no longer shame. She bit her lip and asked, can we do this forever? Julian looked up. Only if you promise to keep stealing all my shirts. Sebastian grinned. And to never let either of us fall asleep alone again. She walked up to them, wrapping one arm around each waist. Deal. And with that, the three of them stood in the morning light, not broken, not confused, but whole in their own kind of love. Not conventional. But completely real. Rain drizzled lightly against the windows of the cabin. Inside, the fire crackled softly, casting a warm glow over the three tangled figures curled together on the large sectional couch. Elena's head rested on Julian's chest, her fingers gently brushing against his skin. Sebastian sat at Julian's other side, hand entwined with his, their legs overlapping lazily. It had been 2 months since they had decided to stop hiding, from each other, from themselves, from what they truly wanted. What began as a mess of betrayal and confusion had slowly bloomed into something raw and real. The three of them, so different, yet perfectly balanced, had created their own kind of love. One with no rules but honesty, respect, and desire. Julian ran his fingers through Elena's hair, his gaze shifting to Sebastian, who gave him a slow, content smile. You look happy, Julian whispered. Sebastian chuckled, leaning forward to press a soft kiss to Julian's shoulder. I am. I never thought I'd find this. Not like this. Elena stirred, eyes fluttering open. You mean, being in love with your best friend and his girlfriend? He raised an eyebrow. And the girl who ended up stealing my heart too. She laughed softly, shifting to sit up. We're not normal, you know that, right? Julian smiled. We're not supposed to be. Normal is boring. He pulled both of them closer, kissing Elena's lips tenderly, then leaning over to kiss Sebastian with equal passion. The firelight reflected in their eyes, and for a long moment, everything else faded, the past, the judgment, the outside world. Later, under the warm covers of their shared bed, Elena lay between the two men, skin bare, bodies tangled. There were no secrets between them now, only shared breath, whispered promises, and soft touches. Sebastian pressed his lips to her neck while Julian's hands traced gentle patterns down her spine. The kisses deepened, turned hungrier. They moved in perfect rhythm, learning each other's languages, of pleasure, of emotion, of connection. It wasn't just sex. It was love, raw and real and chosen. Their moans mingled in the dim room, sighs blending like music. Julian kissed Sebastian while holding Elena's hand, and she smiled against his lips. There was no jealousy here anymore, only a deep, growing bond that felt sacred. Afterward, their bodies cooled, but their hearts remained aflame. I used to think love had rules, Elena whispered, eyes closing. That I had to choose. That if someone broke my heart, that was the end. Julian brushed her cheek. But this was just the beginning. Sebastian nodded, wrapping his arms around both of them. We're not broken anymore. Elena smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek, not from sadness, but from overwhelming peace. No. We're whole. All three of us. And as the storm outside faded into a quiet night, their hearts beat in sync, not as one, but as three that chose each other, freely and forever.